the things you consume are as important, if not more important, than the things that you do on a daily basis, right? Something that's, it's a common principle of life is your inputs determine the outputs or the outcomes, whether you're conscious of it or not. In this day and age, especially, it's as important to be in control of the things that you consume, right? And the reason for that is every action that you do starts with thought, right? Every single action that you do starts with thought. Your external circumstances in your life all started with a thought. It's a result of what's going on inside your head, honestly. So the best way to get the best outputs or the best external environment, the best life, is to watch what you put at the top of the funnel, which is the information, what you consume. Your mind is a data center as well as a garden as well. Like, you've got to feed it the right nutrients, you've got to feed it the right information, because that is directly reflected on your actions, things that you do on a daily basis, how you view the world, and also what your environment looks like. Are you successful? Are you not? What kind of person are you? It all shapes from the things that you consume, whether it's social media, whether it's the kind of music you listen to, whatever it is, right? And it's super important in this day and age simply because there's a lot of nonsense on the internet, and I'm guilty of. I'm not even gonna say guilty because it happens, man. In terms of scrolling, and you're just watching some BS on TikTok or Instagram Reels, and you're like, what am I actually doing? You ever had that realization where you're like, okay, what am I actually doing here, watching this, right? And when you actually realize the importance of what you put at the top of funnel, it will change the way you see media in general. Like, it will change your whole algorithm, it will change the books that you read. And why this matters is passive consumption, whether it's scrolling, whether it's porn, low quality content, it doesn't just waste time, it actively shapes the quality of your thinking and your self image below the surface as well, right? It becomes you. You're just an amalgamation of all the information you've consumed, and that has directly impacted the actions that you take, and in turn impacted your external environment. And if you want to fully understand this concept in super super depth, read As a Man Thinketh. Basically, that whole book talks about you your external environment is a direct result of your brain and what's going on inside. It all starts with thought, and thought starts with the information that goes into your brain, because then you think it. Thinking is how you process it. Now, for my own proof, right, how this has affected me, when I fully made this realization, I just changed what I was consuming. So I started reading every single day. I read a chapter or two every single day, and it shapes my worldview, it shapes the way I think, the way I see things, and what I actually want from my life. Literally, just from reading, just from changing that one thing, making sure I'm reading books that are gonna, expand my knowledge, the way I see life. Great people who have put their whole life's work into this book. Deep it, they put their whole life's work into a book, and you can just access it on Spotify for free, right? I didn't realize how impactful reading was until recently, until I started reading again. I used to read a lot when I was a kid, but recently I started again. But even doing that and being aware of how important it is to watch what you consume in terms of media, in terms of what goes into your brain, I've been so conscious of the things I listen to. I even reduced the amount of rap that I'm listening to, like low vibrational rap. I still listen to like a lot of luxury rap, Larry June, a bit of Rick Ross. But as for the rappers who all they talk about is struggle, pain, I don't want to be operating on that frequency. Do you know what I mean? And it's the same thing with food. Like, when it comes to your diet, right? You are a direct reflection of your diet from a physical standpoint, right? If you're eating unhealthy stuff and you're doing this constantly, you're eating pizzas, burgers, donuts, fries all the time, bro, it's gonna show. It's going to show. It is going to show. So why do we treat it any different when it comes to our mentality and the things that we consume, when it comes to media, right? So yeah, it's just some food for thought. Honestly, like audiobooks, journaling on a daily basis, changing your YouTube algorithm. Think about what's actually going on in your mind, because the things that you do is literally a direct reflection of what goes on in your mind. One of the biggest and most important quotes that I got from As a Man Thinketh is, you can't hide your thoughts. People think they can think things in secret and no one's gonna know. You can't hide your thoughts, because eventually it's gonna show in your actions, right? It's gonna show, and that in turn is gonna show in your exterior circumstances, which is so true. So if you want to change your circumstances, the first thing you got to do is change what you're consuming. Stop watching brain rot stuff all the time. Now, we're not perfect. Even if it's like you're just reducing it by a substantial amount, you don't need to fully go monk mode, because that's not it's not it's not it's not sustainable, like, to just never look at another Instagram reel again. But just be conscious, call yourself out when you're doing it. One thing that helped for me is when I started saying, like, if I'm doing a bad habit or something I know I'm not supposed to be doing, I'll just say it out loud. I'll be like, watching an Instagram reel. I'll just say it whilst I'm doing it, watching reels, and then I'll be like, okay, let me just stop this now. And that concept came from, I read it in Atomic Habits, but basically, there's like this super high speed train in Japan, right? And the way they work is the instructors, right, on the platforms, they, instead of like when they want to do a check when the train's about to go, right, they will point and they have to say out loud, this is clear, someone's still boarding, etc. And the reason they have to point and do it out loud is so that they don't get lazy with their checks. And this has saved a lot of people's lives in the past. So it just shows the importance of actually verbally and physically calling out when you're consuming some nonsense, right? That's super, super important. Calling it out when you're doing a bad habit. It literally gives you, as we English people say, kick up the ass. As in, let me pattern up, I need to stop doing that. And looking at your mind as a garden, right? It makes you think, okay, I'm either gardening deliberately or I'm letting weeds take over by default. If you're not purposely putting good information that's aligned with your goals into your brain, weeds are going to grow there. It leaves space for nonsense, laziness. You're just going to be caught up in nonsense that's going around on social media rather than actually involved in your own self-building and self-fulfillment process, right? It's so important what you put into the top of the funnel. So yeah, even if you sit down, audit everything you consume on YouTube, on social media, replace it with something that compounds over time. Those same hours that you're putting in, or even half of those hours that you're putting into YouTube, whatever, if you even put half of that into learning a language, reading a book, watching a podcast that's helpful, watch what happens, what that compounds into like 30 days, in a month, in 3 years. Imagine where you would be in 5 years. And that's the problem. That's another problem. People don't understand like the long-term impacts of things, right? People don't understand that. They just can't wrap their heads around it. They're too focused. They can only see this far. They can only see this far. And that's very, very, very dangerous, because you won't know until it happens, or until it's 10 years time, the negative effects, like the extent of the damage that you're doing to yourself. So, just think about your mind as a data center, and it's running corrupted files if you're consuming nonsense. If you're consuming nonsense, it's running corrupted files, and corrupted files produce corrupted outputs. Clean the inputs, clean it up. It's essential. So remember to like, comment, subscribe. That's all for today. But